Hold on. Hold on. Before you scroll, before you flick past this thumbnail like every other piece of gossip clickbait in your feed, understand one thing. What Cardi B just did on Instagram Live tonight is not a rant. It is not a moment. It is a self-inflicted legal grenade, and she pulled the pin herself, on camera, for millions of people, while her baby daddy Stefon Diggs is standing in the middle of an active courtroom war he cannot afford to lose. And the man she just called a light-skinned lizard on the internet, Chris Blake Griffin, has already been beaten on video, already settled with Stefon Diggs' own brother in court, and already handed over pages and pages of receipts that describe a night in D.C. that no NFL wife, no rap wife, no baby mama on planet Earth wants attached to the father of her child. So yes, Cardi B is defending Stefon Diggs. Yes, she is going scorched earth on Chris Blake Griffin. And no, none of this is helping. In the next few minutes, I am going to walk you through every single piece of this, the drugging claim, the alleged pass, the attempt on his life, Stefon Diggs' brother, Cardi B's threats, the Jay-Z Yankee Stadium spectacle, the Rihanna cameo nobody was ready for, the Kanye West elephant in the room, and the Colin Kaepernick freestyle that just aged terribly in about 11 seconds. Sit down. Lock in. Because this is one of the messiest 72 hours hip-hop has served up all year, and by the end of this video, you will understand exactly why every side of it is losing. Let us start where the fire is hottest. Cardi B is crashing out. Again. And I do not say that lightly. This is not a one-off outburst. This is a pattern now, and tonight the target was Chris Blake Griffin. If you have somehow missed this whole storyline, Chris Blake Griffin used to be a stylist for Stefon Diggs. Full stop. That was the working relationship. Chris Blake Griffin says everything changed on one specific trip, a trip to D.C., a trip that Stefon Diggs personally flew him out for. And this is where the story stops being industry gossip and starts sounding like a criminal case. Chris Blake Griffin alleges that Stefon Diggs drugged him. Chris Blake Griffin alleges that Stefon Diggs made unwanted sexual advances toward him. And Chris Blake Griffin alleges that after he rejected those advances, Stefon Diggs sent people, including Stefon Diggs' own brother, to physically try to end his life. Not scare him. Not rough him up. End him. And here is the sentence that is going to haunt this whole case for the next 12 months, because Chris Blake Griffin says the attack is on video. He has said it out loud, on the record, that there is footage of the alleged attempt on his life at Central Apartments on 755, South Spring Street. He has named Derez Martian Diggs, the brother, as one of the men involved. He has named other men alongside him. That is not a vague accusation on a podcast. That is a location, a date, an incident report, and a witness list. And Chris Blake Griffin has been saying this out loud since 2023. That is the piece a lot of casual viewers are missing tonight. This is not new. Chris Blake Griffin filed an incident report back in 2023. Chris Blake Griffin spoke out about it again in 2024. Chris Blake Griffin posted the footage of himself getting beaten. Chris Blake Griffin sued in civil court. And, most importantly, Stefon Diggs' brother, Derez Martian Diggs, already settled with Chris Blake Griffin over the beatdown. Read that sentence again. The brother settled. In court. That is not a rumor. That is a legal outcome. That is a paper trail. That is the reason Chris Blake Griffin is walking around right now with a level of confidence that is making Team Diggs sweat, because when a defendant settles, it is not because everything is fine. It is because their lawyer told them the alternative is worse. So when Cardi B pops onto Instagram Live tonight and calls Chris Blake Griffin a liar, a thief, a light-skinned lizard, an albino, and a hater, we have to remember what the paperwork already says. The paperwork says the brother paid. The current battle is separate, and this is the part Cardi B seems to be walking right into. Stefon Diggs is suing Chris Blake Griffin for defamation. Stefon Diggs is demanding that Chris Blake Griffin turn over all travel records related to the DC trip. And Chris Blake Griffin has publicly said something that made a lot of legal people online lift their eyebrows. Chris Blake Griffin said, essentially, "Why are you asking me for travel records, Stefon Diggs? You are the one who booked the flight, you are the one who paid for it, you already have every receipt." And on top of that, he says he has already handed over pages and pages of evidence. Pages. Not screenshots. Pages. That is why some observers are saying Stefon Diggs' defamation lawsuit is starting to feel less like an offensive move and more like a panic move, a move designed to intimidate a plaintiff into silence. Stefon Diggs, for his part, is denying everything, calling Chris Blake Griffin a liar and calling Chris Blake Griffin a thief. That is Stefon Diggs' official position. But the internet is doing what the internet does. It is comparing statements. It is comparing timelines. And it is asking one very uncomfortable question. Why does the alleged victim have receipts, and the defendant only has adjectives? Enter Cardi B. And this is where the story takes a turn that even Cardi B's most loyal fans are struggling to defend. Cardi B is Stefon Diggs' baby mama. Cardi B is Stefon Diggs' publicly known partner. Cardi B is a mother of multiple children. And Cardi B decided that the correct move, at the exact moment her partner is drowning in a defamation lawsuit, was to hop on the internet and effectively threaten the alleged victim of an alleged assault. She said, "And I want you to sit with this, that the light-skinned lizard, meaning Chris Blake Griffin, does not want to go against her, because she has something for him." She said she does not stay quiet. She called him an albino. She accused him of stealing. She accused him of juicing up his story because his allegations were not getting picked up the way he wanted them to be picked up. She questioned his version of events, said he told it 3 different times, and, in the most Cardi B-coded moment of the entire night, she zeroed in on Chris Blake Griffin's sexuality as if that were the crime. As if that were the story. As if that were the point. And a lot of you watching, especially the women watching, already know what I am about to say. That is not a defense. That is a distraction. And it is a bad one. Let me be honest with you for a second, because this next part matters. Cardi B does not know how Stefon Diggs behaves when Cardi B is not in the room. She cannot know. She was not there. The alleged incident in DC happened before Cardi B was even publicly linked to Stefon Diggs. So when Cardi B stands in front of a camera and says, "First of all, the dude does not even act like that," she is not testifying. She is guessing. She is guessing on behalf of a man who is currently being accused of drugging someone, exposing himself, forcing physical contact, and then dispatching his brother to silence the witness with fists. That is not a public relations issue. That is a criminal-adjacent nightmare. And Cardi B is answering a criminal-adjacent nightmare with schoolyard insults about a man's skin tone and orientation. And now here is the piece that is quietly the most damaging. Because Cardi B kept saying, "Why is Chris Blake Griffin so obsessed with a man? Why does Chris Blake Griffin want to be involved in these type of allegations with another man? You have a son, why do you want to be involved in that?" Read between the lines. Cardi B is not defending Stefon Diggs from the accusation. Cardi B is defending Stefon Diggs from the identity. She is embarrassed. That is what this is. That is the actual emotion driving this live. Cardi B has a baby with a man who might be sexually involved with men, might have drugged an employee, and might have sent his brother to beat a witness on camera. And instead of processing that in private with her lawyer and her therapist, Cardi B is processing that in public with her keyboard. And the internet is not going to forget it. Because remember, the man she is calling an albino, the man she is calling a lizard, the man she is calling a thief, is the same man whose alleged attacker, Darez Martian Diggs, already cut a check to settle in court. The paperwork already spoke. Cardi B is now yelling at the paperwork. And I need you to understand something else about the way Cardi B chose to fight this, because it is going to matter in court. When Cardi B publicly called Chris Blake Griffin a thief, publicly accused him of stealing, publicly implied he fabricated an entire criminal-level allegation for clout, Cardi B did not do it in a group chat. Cardi B did it on a platform with millions of witnesses. That is the definition of a public statement. And the second a plaintiff like Chris Blake Griffin has a public statement from a woman as visible as Cardi B, calling him a liar and a criminal, Chris Blake Griffin's legal team suddenly has a new file to open. Cardi B is not a bystander in Stefon Diggs' lawsuit anymore. Cardi B just wrote herself into it. And while she is at it, she may have just written herself into a witness intimidation conversation, because remember, Chris Blake Griffin is the plaintiff in an active civil case tied to a criminal-adjacent set of allegations, and Cardi B is publicly telling the world she has something for him if he keeps talking. That is a sentence you say on a rap song. That is not a sentence you say in the middle of your baby daddy's defamation lawsuit. Cardi B is not just crashing out. Cardi B is crashing out on the record. And the record does not forget. Chris Blake Griffin, for his part, did not stay quiet. Chris Blake Griffin came back with a long, detailed post laying out his side again, timeline, context, receipts, everything. And here is what I want everyone at home to understand about this response. Chris Blake Griffin's story has not moved. Not in 2023. Not in 2024. And not tonight. When someone is lying, the story shifts, the details drift, the version changes to fit the last round of pushback. Chris Blake Griffin's version has kept its shape. The location is the same. The names are the same. The video is the same. The incident report is the same. The settlement is the same. That is not the profile of a hustler chasing a payday. That is the profile of a plaintiff with a paper trail. And that is why so many people online are quietly siding with Chris Blake Griffin, even as Cardi B is out here trying to bulldoze him with adjectives. Now let me shift you into the second half of this, because while Cardi B was crashing out on Instagram, another storyline was quietly reshaping New York this weekend, and it involves a man who has spent 30 years never having to defend himself the way Cardi B just tried to defend Stefon Diggs. Jay-Z. 3 nights. Yankee Stadium. A stadium run that was supposed to be a coronation. And in a lot of ways, it was. He did numbers. He brought the culture. Jay-Z pulled favors that only he can pull. And he also, if we are being brutally honest, revealed something about himself that his most protective fans do not want to say out loud. HOV needed reinforcements. A lot of them. To make the room feel like a coronation. Night 1, Beyoncé walked out. Smart move. Because Jay-Z knows the truth. Jay-Z knows that Beyoncé sells Jay-Z. Beyoncé showing up on night 1 was a business decision as much as it was a marriage moment. Because the second Beyoncé appeared, night 2 demand exploded, night 3 demand exploded, ticket buzz doubled, social media caught fire, and every hip-hop blog on earth had a Beyoncé headline. That was Jay-Z playing chess. And Beyoncé delivered. Beyoncé sounded strong. Beyoncé looked tour-ready. Beyoncé even came back on night 3 and closed even harder. And then there was Blue Ivy, on the piano, in front of Yankee Stadium, being visibly groomed by Jay-Z and Beyoncé for a long career in entertainment. This is a family business now, and they are showing you. Jay-Z brought Nas. Massive New York moment. He brought Memphis Bleek, Jay-Z, Alicia Keys, Slick Rick, Pharrell, and Eminem. He brought Jadakiss, Fat Joe, Swizz Beatz, Teyana Taylor even though her mic was clearly not cooperating that night. He brought Jermaine Dupri, The Dream, Jeezy, Usher, who is currently in the middle of a stadium tour with Chris Brown but still hopped a flight to bow at HOV's altar for one night. And then the moment that broke the internet. Rihanna. Yes. Rihanna. The woman who has practically retired from music, the woman who has spent the last year of her life traveling with A$AP Rocky on his tour, the woman who has not really given us a proper vocal performance in what feels like an entire generation of pop culture, walked out on Jay-Z's stage. And listen, Rihanna sounded rusty. Let us not pretend she did not. Rihanna sounded like a woman who has not been in a vocal booth in a very long time. But that is not the point. The point is that HOV can pick up the phone, and Rihanna will come. That is his real currency. Not his catalog. Not his radio hits. His Rolodex. And now let me say the thing that a lot of people at home are already thinking but are scared to say on the timeline. HOV had to bring out an entire generation of celebrities to make one weekend feel massive. Kanye West did not. That is the quiet earthquake underneath this whole conversation. Kanye West sold out SoFi Stadium 2 nights in a row this year. SoFi Stadium seats 80,000 people. That is nearly double Yankee Stadium's capacity. Kanye West did that without a wife walkout, without a Rihanna surprise, without an Usher flight in, without an Eminem cameo. Kanye West filled 80,000 seats twice on his own name, on his own catalog, on his own controversy. Kanye West had an entire stadium built for him in Albania. 60,000 people showed up for one man. And nobody in the industry wants to say it out loud, because Kanye West has said things about the Jewish community, about black leadership, about industry politics, that most brands and most media companies want nothing to do with. Kanye West is radioactive. But Kanye West is also, whether the industry likes it or not, still one of the most commercially powerful live acts on the planet. And Jay-Z knows. That is the part that is going to sting. Jay-Z performed songs Kanye West produced. He performed songs from Watch the Throne, the joint album he and Ye made together. He performed So Appalled and muted Ye's verse. Muted it. On stage. In Yankee Stadium. In front of the entire hip-hop world. HOV is publicly icing Kanye West out for the business fallout and for the ugly things he said about his children, and I understand that decision entirely. But by still performing those songs, Jay-Z is doing something very specific. He is signaling that the door is not fully closed. He is dangling an olive branch that only Kanye West can see. And Kanye West saw it. Kanye West posted fire emojis under the concert footage. Kanye West is watching. Kanye West wants back in. And here is the part nobody wants to say. Jay-Z would benefit from Kanye West on that Paris stage more than Kanye West would benefit from being invited. But Jay-Z is not going to ask. Kanye West is going to have to grovel. And even then, Kanye West should not expect friendship. That door is closed. That is business. And let me sharpen the point one more time, because this is the part the culture is going to be arguing about for the next 6 months. If we are being intellectually honest, if we are stripping away tribal loyalties, if we are just reading the receipts on the wall, Kanye West is the biggest current live act in hip-hop right now. Not the most beloved. Not the safest. Not the most invited to award shows. The biggest. Kanye West is filling rooms that Jay-Z would need a Beyoncé feature to fill. Kanye West is being handed stadiums in foreign countries. Kanye West is doing all of it while the entire industrial machine, radio, streaming, brands, media, is actively trying to pretend Kanye West does not exist. And still, Kanye West sells. That is not a fandom opinion. That is a box office fact. And Jay-Z, one of the smartest business minds hip-hop has ever produced, is watching those numbers too. That is why Jay-Z performed those Kanye West-produced records. That is why Jay-Z left the door cracked. That is why Jay-Z is putting up posts and freestyles this weekend, because deep down, Jay-Z understands that history is not being written by the safest catalog anymore. History is being written by the loudest one. Now let me get to the part of Jay-Z's weekend that fumbled the hardest, because this is where Jay-Z's legend actually took a small, uncomfortable dent. Jay-Z did a freestyle. And in the freestyle, he decided that Yankee Stadium, of all places, was the correct room to take a shot at Colin Kaepernick. For those who need the fast catch-up, Colin Kaepernick is the former NFL quarterback who kneeled during the national anthem to protest police brutality against black Americans. Colin Kaepernick lost his career for it. Colin Kaepernick was, in the words of many people who worked inside the NFL, blackballed. And Jay-Z, once a public supporter of Colin Kaepernick, once photographed wearing his jersey, later signed a deal with the NFL and told the world, "We are past kneeling." That decision, that phrase, that pivot, has followed Jay-Z ever since. And this weekend, in his own freestyle, Jay-Z tried to clean it up. HOV said Colin Kaepernick signed an NDA. He said Colin Kaepernick took the check. He said Colin Kaepernick basically agreed not to speak on it, so why is the culture blaming him? There is one enormous problem with that line. According to TMZ's own reporting, Colin Kaepernick did not sign an NDA. And it gets worse, because the same reporting alleges that Roc Nation was seeding negative stories about Colin Kaepernick during the exact window that Jay-Z was cutting the NFL deal. A TMZ executive said out loud that he told his team they were not going to run what he called a hit piece on Colin Kaepernick, because they did not have the cultural cachet to be the ones doing that. Sit with that. There were reportedly hit pieces on offer. There were reportedly smear angles in circulation. And this all reportedly happened while Colin Kaepernick was still in serious negotiations with Jay-Z's camp. So when Jay-Z stood on a stage in front of the entire hip-hop world and made Colin Kaepernick the punchline, when Jay-Z said "Y'all better be glad it is me who told this story," the internet reacted the way it always reacts when a legend forgets that receipts exist. Because Jay-Z can spin the deal. He can spin the halftime show. He can spin Roc Nation. He cannot spin Colin Kaepernick's career. Colin Kaepernick lost everything he built. Colin Kaepernick never got another contract offer the moment he took a knee. Never. And Jay-Z, whether he means to or not, keeps letting the world hear him minimize the price Colin Kaepernick paid. That is why the freestyle did not land. That is why the culture is grumbling. That is why, for the first time in a long time, some of Jay-Z's most protective fans are saying, out loud, maybe HOV should have just performed the classics and gone home. So here is where we are, and I want you to zoom all the way out with me. In one 72-hour window, hip-hop watched Cardi B publicly threaten and mock a man who alleges he was drugged, assaulted, and nearly killed by her baby daddy's brother. Hip-hop watched Chris Blake Griffin refuse to move an inch off a story he has been telling since 2023, with a settlement, a video, and an incident report already in his favor. Hip-hop watched Jay-Z assemble the biggest celebrity favor list on earth to fill Yankee Stadium 3 times. Hip-hop watched Beyoncé, Blue Ivy, Rihanna, Nas, Eminem, and Usher all bend a knee for the throne. And hip-hop watched Kanye West, still radioactive, still cancelled by the industry, quietly outperform every stadium metric in the room without a single guest. And then, on top of all of that, the culture watched HOV take a shot at Colin Kaepernick that TMZ practically dismantled in real time. Nobody is winning this week. Not Cardi B. Not Stefon Diggs. Not Jay-Z. Not Kanye West. Not Colin Kaepernick. And the only person who might be walking out of this cycle with more credibility than he had going in, weirdly, is Chris Blake Griffin, the man Cardi B just tried to demolish on Instagram Live. Before you scroll away, I want you to do 3 things for me. I want you to think about whether you believe Cardi